and tools for empowerment. Okay, Misha, take it away.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Friday. Exciting that Nancy's here today. Thank you, Nancy. It's wonderful to have you back. So, COVID is spiking to the point where it spiked to the White House. As I mentioned, our president currently has what is described by his doctor as mild COVID. Now, I didn't try to reach out to Kevin, even though I gave him some suggestions on what he should do, but I didn't try to talk to him. I'm sure he's inundated with calls, and I should be the last person trying to reach him. But I do know he got Paxlovid, and I'm not gonna ask Kevin as to what else he gave him. I don't think it matters. I'm sure he will recover, but the key question is very simple. We all have seen his suboptimal recent debate performance. We all have been questioning his overall health and his cognitive health. There's no surprises there. So the key question is, will he suffer long COVID, right? I mean, I'm sure it's on everybody's mind, as well as what will that mean to his campaign. So current statistics have not changed. About 5% of all patients on average who have experienced COVID will progress to long COVID, which could have a pretty significant impact, not just on the level of energy, cause chronic fatigue, chronic aching, but also can cause significant cognitive decline. And that decline could be reversible or it could be permanent. We have seen both scenarios. So now the patients who are over 75, that percent goes up to between 10 to 20%. So there's 1 in 5 chance roughly that our president will suffer pretty significant long-term consequences. Now, of course, he has the best medical team in the world, so they're going to try to avoid this. And we're going to talk about how they're probably going to do this. Again, full disclaimer, it's not actual information, which I'm not going to try to collect. I don't think it's all that relevant, but really, I'm going to tell you sort of how current COVID prevention, in my mind, should work as well, long COVID prevention or long COVID treatment. Now, what should we do about uptick? And are there any new news? There are no news in terms of statistics. It continues to climb. Interestingly, Maryland now has one of the highest statistics in the country. It's not really clear why it's higher than Virginia and Maryland and DC, but I'm sure that Virginia and DC will catch up. So our area is the hottest spot currently. Why that is the case, I don't know. It's not very clear. It doesn't seem to be, the expected pattern should be south and areas where there's very hot temperature, so that people tend to end up being indoors more simply because they want to be in inside air conditioned areas. But why Maryland versus Virginia? You'd expect Virginia to be hotter. But again, I don't have a good explanation to this. Right, sorry, Kevin, I refer to Kevin O'Connor, who's a residence physician and somebody who's on faculty at GW, and he's been I know him and I've interacted with him many times. So now, long COVID. So what do we know and what we don't know? Well, we do know that it's a systemic illness. We do know that it's illness that seems to have multitude of reactions. If you presume that there's one trigger to long COVID, that there's one particular cause, that we will have answer to that cause, forget it. That's not right. There's at least half a dozen of drivers for long COVID. Some of them are inflammatory drivers. Some of them, like one of the really important one, which we'll talk a little bit about, is viscosity of the blood. Quite often seems like that's in certain patients who develop long COVID, the blood becomes too viscous, and and can even cause microclots or even like large clots. In Europe, it's a standard of care to give patients treatments that sort of removes the microclots from the blood. We don't do that in America in most of the times. But there are still patients where there are still physicians who prescribe to their patients some kind of anti-clot medications, whether it's a baby aspirin or some more natural forms. For example, I do recommend quite often to certain patients nattokinase, which is a natural form of blood thinning. It's a very gentle blood thinning. So with all that said, that's a second cause. There are definitely significant mitochondrial disruptions, so the energy production inside mitochondria drops. And we will talk about what that means and how do we treat that in a little bit. There is actually very direct treatment, and you already heard about this, and that is what's called NAD or NAD+. It's a molecule that we produce in every cell, but we can take that molecule externally. We can do it as an injection or an infusion. We can also take precursors to this molecule that are called nicotinamide riboside or nicotinamide mononucleotide, which are then synthesized into the NAD. So that's also available commercially as oral products or supplements. So then, of course, there's a really significant change in some of the hormonal patterns. Sleep gets frequently disrupted. People don't get rested very well during the night. So because if that happens, of course, there's a higher chances of chronic fatigue if you don't sleep very well. And of course, the another really big one is just a chronic pain that tends to also cause significant suffering, cause increased fatigue, less capacity to exercise. And when we don't exercise as much, again, our entire metabolic machinery, our mitochondrial function suffers. Why people can't exercise, the normal degree of exercise for a lot of patients causes severe exhaustion to the point where they can't even lift their head off the pillow. And again, it's probably mitochondrial cause, but I'm grouping that separately because to me, it's a key feature. For example, patients with chronic Lyme disease or with some other chronic infectious, that doesn't seem to happen to them as much as to the long COVID patients. Also, it doesn't happen to chronic mono patients, for example. So patients who have sometimes described as chronic fatigue syndrome, many of them can exercise to some extent, and many of them feel better after exercise. Very specific feature of long COVID patients feel a lot worse after exercise, which is not necessarily clear why that happens. So let's sort of segue into the treatment for a couple minutes. So the treatments are targeting the specific areas I just mentioned. If somebody presents when we assess them with an inflammatory response, we're going to go aggressively after inflammatory response. Most patients are taking this medication called low-dose naltrexone or LDN. It seems to be a very benign, very easy, low-cost treatment that decreases inflammation in every single patient. And a lot of patients feel a little bit better with it. And because it's so easy to take, it's a kind of one of the mainstreams. Of course, there are also a whole slew of anti-inflammatory foods and spices, things like turmeric, things like quercetin, things like boswellia, green tea, or EGCG, or extract from green tea. Many of you, of course, know about that. So those are also very, very commonly utilized treatment tools. Now, low-dose naltrexone is now becoming a kind of, I wouldn't say yet standard of care, but most clinics that are specializing in long COVID prescribe that. But a lot of standard clinics would not venture into kind of a more of an integrated medicine territory, so they wouldn't prescribe supplements. They may check vitamin D level. They would often prescribe magnesium and fatty acids because those is kind of also close to a standard of care at this point. Particularly specific forms of magnesium. Magnesium malate could be one. If there's a lot of cognitive involvement, magnesium threonate thought to be better. So there are different forms of magnesium. But of course, in our clinic, we use a lot more tools. We do use a lot of Chinese medicine tools. So we use a lot of acupuncture, acupressure. We use some Chinese herbs. We use a lot of self-acupressure and self-moxa. Those of you who remember our long COVID program medical director, Ashley, who's on vacation, I'll make sure that at some point she comes back and talks to us a bit more about, what she's doing and how she's treating patients and very successful, a large long COVID group that meets twice a week. So those are the tools that we use. We tend to feel that acupressure and self-moxa are super effective because they're also very easy to apply and they're very low cost. The moxa stick will cost close to nothing and actually teaches the entire group of long COVID patients which points you pick and why, and how do you apply the pressure or the heat. So moxa is a little stick that you light up literally with a lighter or matches. And it produces heat. It looks like a little piece of coal that burns and that heat, you kind of hover over the spot and it heats up the spot, and that's the treatment. So it's very effective. It actually looks like to be more effective than acupressure for a lot of our patients. It's a very common method we use in the clinic. So that's the acupressure is often used for chronic muscle pain and muscle fatigability. Of course, we engage very, very heavily our colleagues in physical therapy as well as speech therapy. So if the patients come in and they really have a significant speech impairment because they're so fatigued that they can't talk for a while, so there would be a re-engagement or retraining of speech or physical therapy. And physical therapy is critical because a lot of the times patients keep trying to re-engage into exercise just to find out that it crashes them, and then they get a lot worse after, not better. So there is a very, very careful graded exercise routine, which, for some patients takes forever to gradually rev up to where they used to be. So then there is a more esoteric treatments that are probably not worth going and discussing a lot today. We've had some successes with ketamine injections. We've had quite a lot of successes with mindfulness. We had a lot of successes with patients exploring additional modalities that may be in the realm of a central nervous system balancing. So one thing I didn't really mention, now it's good time, is that most patients with long COVID will develop some variant of autonomic instability. Sometimes it's called POTS, postural orthostatic hypotension. Sometimes we just use word autonomic instability because it's actually more accurate term. POTS is a little bit of a, it doesn't describe exactly what's happening. Not everybody will have hypotension. So some patients would simply have, when they change the position rapidly, they may have a high pulse rate, or they may just feel very sick. It's not necessarily POTS precise description, but autonomic instability encompasses all of this. So any treatment that helps the central nervous system to find better balance could be very profound. And those are the things that could be hands-on techniques. That could be craniosacral therapy. It could be even massage. Tai Chi would be wonderful. Gentle yoga would be wonderful. Anything that allows the system to self-regulate, in essence, right? Mindfulness practices. So all of those things are very, very good. If you're wondering if there are specific treatment breakthroughs, and you may see certain things listed in the literature, I would say that I think most of this stuff, when it comes out, it's a hype. And usually that hype is based on a small study of few patients, and somebody in particular clinic will implement something, they'll find the benefit, and then they'll start sort of advocating left and right. Unfortunately, again, I don't expect anything specifically to work. Why? It's a classic same response as why I would never expect a single drug to do much of anything for Alzheimer's disease. When you're looking at the house with 20 leaks in the roof, if you patch up one leak, nothing will happen. The 19 holes will keep leaking just like before, and that's not going to do any good to anybody. So you really have to look at each patient in a whole health arena and stop getting stuck up on the idea that we're going to find a cure for this terrible disease. We won't. It won't happen. There's no principle in which that could happen, right? If particular individual has 5, 6, 7, 10 disruptions, I would never expect any real advances. So I know I talked a little bit too much, I think, given the cue from Janet, putting Nancy on the hotspots. But Janet, can we take a couple of questions? So can we say 3 minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
Biden
had COVID previously. Is it possible he developed long COVID from that infection that he's impaired? I think, Randall, your guess is just as good as everybody else. It's very possible, and it very well could be that we not hearing this conversation because they don't want to discuss this. I don't know. It's possible. It's possible that and a lot of people say that long COVID, it's not a static condition. People state of health fluctuates quite a bit. There may be some really good days and some really bad days, right? Versus if somebody is developing some real cognitive impairment like Alzheimer's, for example, you would not have much of good and bad days. You may have some better days and some worse days, but you're not going to have good days. And so it's going to be less of the fluctuation. But sure, it's a very good thought process. Often politicians or famous people, their life is sort of veiled, so we don't exactly know what's happening with them. We may make some speculations, but the reality is we're probably led to believe certain things because they need to be shown to us. So let's take another question. And by the way, just thanks again for those of you who sent questions ahead of time. You know who you are. I really appreciate that. Please do that more often. It helps quite a lot for me to think how to structure the hour. And also it helps tremendously to Janet because we can organize ourselves a lot better. So it looks like no questions today. Oh, there we go. Yes, I said NAD is very helpful. We give NAD to a lot of our patients, to a lot of long COVID patients. We give them an injectable form. We give them some people who can't afford injectable form. We give it sublingual. Some patients told us that this is one of the best things that happened to their long COVID in terms of how they feel. It gives them a lot more energy and there's quite perceivable. So yeah, it's really hard to get an NAD for injectable form over the counter because it requires prescription. So you'll have to work with your provider to see if they would be willing to figure out how to do it for you. Of course, that provider has to be an integrative medicine provider since the standard of care does not recognize this as a treatment at all, since it's not FDA approved. It's a natural molecule. There's no way of FDA approving. We make NAD our entire life from the day we're born till the day we die. So green tea. Well, microplastics will occur in a green tea that's not organic and also in a poor quality green teas. So I highly recommend for everybody to drink exclusively organic green teas, similar with coffee and similar with any teas. I think teas and coffee generally tend to be very contaminated when they're not organic. So it's not surprising. I have not personally seen that report, but I would expect not just microplastics, but as I said, they're very contaminated crops. But very, very good point. Thank you so much for bringing that up. All right, I think my time is up. Again, Nancy, it's so wonderful to have you back. And I don't know why your spotlight disappeared. Oh, there we go. All right, there you are.
Ooh, now I'm on the full spotlight. Well, thank you for having me. It's really great to be back. Hello, everyone. It's been a while since I've been here. So maybe some of you remember me, some of you may not. I do have a little presentation, and then I've got 2 exercises for us, 2 different types of meditation based in Kundalini Yoga. So let me go ahead and share my presentation. And I would encourage you all, as I'm going through, to just ask questions if you've got them. When I'm in this full slideshow mode, I may not see the chat. So Janet or Misha, if you want to hop in, if there are questions, I can stop. So Kundalini Yoga is one of the things that I'm really into. In fact, I've just started a YouTube channel with Kundalini Yoga. So let's just talk about what that is. Oh, but first, a little bit about me. We got a great intro from Janet. I am a Kundalini Yoga instructor. I am also a Reiki master. That's how I know Mara Benner, if some of you are familiar with Mara. She gave me my training. I'm a mother of 3, so these are not necessarily in order of importance. I would probably put that one at the top if they were. I also am a business owner. I'm working with a startup, education technology startup, and I'm just an enthusiast in general of well-being, nutrition, movement, kind of all of those things I feel like are so important. I really believe, and as I practice Kundalini, I believe more and more that the body has levers in it to help us access our spirituality and to help us access health. And so, spiritual health is, I think, just as important as physical health, mental health, emotional health. And so Kundalini is a great way to get in touch with your spiritual side. So it's not a religion, it's more about connection and consciousness. So, and as I said, I started a Kundalini Yoga channel. you can check it out if you like. I think this is going to be in a follow-up as well. So I've got about 30 videos up there right now. I'm working on it. It's a new thing that I do in my spare time. As you see with all these bullets, I don't have a ton of spare time, but I see what I can do because I just believe in Kundalini so much. So what is Kundalini yoga? It's a form of yoga, and it's thought to awaken energy that lives at the base of the spine. So like the idea is we have this kind of latent energy that's in our bellies. And if we can awaken it and help it move through the different chakras or energy centers, we can start moving blockages that might be causing dis-ease in the body or dis-ease in the mind. So it's a physical practice, but it's also an energetic practice. And the way that the energy moves is by creating tension, pressure, stress, and friction around different energy centers. And so when we release that tension, there can be like a whoosh of energy. So for example, a move in Kundalini might be that we might hold our arms out like this and move them in little circles for 3 minutes at a time. Now, if you were to do that, you would probably feel a lot of tension around this part of your body. And so you want that tension, and then you release the arms and you can feel this kind of movement or lightness depending on how tuned into your body you are. So it's been this long kept secret because of its power. So it's thought of as a household yoga. And that means not that you do it because you're a housekeeper, but it's because you're living in daily life, right? You're busy, you're going to work, you're keeping your house, you're raising children. And so this is a really dense practice that combines lots of different forms of activation. So we've got a combination of pranayama, which is the breath. So it's this life force moving in and out of us through our breathing. There are mantras and chants. So that creates a vibration. Chants also and mantras, as we repeat them, it kind of creates this almost like a hypnosis, this rhythmic kind of lulling us to forget all of the lists and things that are going on, and you just start kind of getting into this rhythm. It's got asanas or postures. So as I just explained, there might be an asana like this, or we'll practice a couple asanas today. So that's using that body and the movement of the body as a lever to release something. It's got mudras, which are gestures. If you're not super familiar with Kundalini, you've probably at least seen Gyan Mudra, which is where you touch the thumb and the pointer finger together. That's one mudra, but there are almost an infinite number of mudras, and some of them are very pretty, like little hearts that you can make, and they have different meanings and purposes. And so part of the point of the mudra is to activate different pressure points in the body. Let's see, I have asanas in there twice, sorry. So the repetitive poses are especially common in Kundalini. So as opposed to like a flow yoga, where you might be doing one posture to one breath and then move into another posture and another breath, this we would hold a posture from anywhere from maybe 3 minutes to up to 31 minutes. So it's just a very different form of yoga. So if you ever go to a Kundalini class, you may be very surprised that they call it yoga because it feels different. It almost feels like a combination of Pilates and yoga and mindfulness in a way. If you do go to a Kundalini class, or if you look up Kundalini online, you'll probably see that people wear all white. So most practitioners wear all white. And that is because it's thought to kind of project the aura farther out from your body. And the reason I like to wear all white is one of the first things I think I mentioned is that Kundalini is a practice of awareness. And so what happens when you wear all white? Well, you certainly don't want to be, walking around with cups of coffee spilling all over yourself. So to me, it reminds me just to be really conscious of my movements. And then also it reminds me to come at especially teaching from a really pure place. So there's a pure place of teaching, but then as a practitioner, there's also a purity of practice. So I'm here for my highest and best good. And one of the maybe hallmarks of Kundalini is that there are tune-in chants, because it's really important to get your body and mind and spirit prepared for the practice. Another hallmark of the practice is that each kriya is for a different purpose. So a kriya is the combination of the breath and the chants and the movement and the postures. And those are packaged in such a way that they have an outcome. So unlike regular flow yoga, where a teacher could just make something up on the spot, in Kundalini, there's a certain sequence that you are supposed to follow. So there are kriyas to relax and release fear, or there's a kriya to empower your voice, or a kriya to activate the glandular system, or the lymph nodes. So there are physiological kriyas for physiological benefit, and then kriyas for more spiritual or emotional benefit. So when you go to a Kundalini class, you never quite know what you're going to get, which is part of the fun. Okay, feel free to ask any questions on these. A lot of people ask me, is it dangerous? So if you Google Kundalini yoga, you're going to see, oh, if you have a Kundalini awakening, that's dangerous, right? And I have heard of some people who have a Kundalini awakening, and so what it feels like, from what I understand, is that your nervous system just kind of goes haywire. To practice Kundalini in its most intense forms, you should be a practitioner of yoga for a number of years, and not just the yoga of the body, but the yoga of the mind, right? So it's like, I do good things in the world, and so you're conditioning your mind and you're conditioning the muscles of your body so you don't pull something if you're doing leg lifts for 3 minutes, and you're conditioning the nervous system, because the way that the energy works, sometimes you get these rushes of energy. So that's why people say it could be dangerous. I believe that especially the practices that I teach are not dangerous. I think they're very accessible. Today's practices are very accessible and perfect for beginners. So I would not be afraid, if I were you, of what might happen if you practice along with me today. Any questions there or comments? Okay. So I'd like to share with you 2 different kriyas that have 2 different benefits. Now, these are more meditative kriyas than physical kriyas. The first one is called Sat Kriya, and it has a number of different components to it, which we'll go into on the next slide. But it is thought to improve your physical health, because we're going to be lifting up, flexing the tummy in a rhythmic fashion. So that's thought to massage the internal organs. And it is designed to raise that Kundalini energy from that lower belly through the different energy centers and up to the crown, which is where spiritual connection is thought to be engaged. So let me show this to you. I'm going to show it to you on the ground, but you can do this practice from your chair. So if you're in a chair and you don't want to move, no problem, stay there. If you want to move to the ground, I might recommend a prop of a block or a meditation cushion if you have knee issues or anything like that. Now, as a disclaimer to this, we will be pumping our bellies, and so it's going to look like this. Like, imagine you're bringing your belly up and in, up and in. So that's what the movement looks like. It's very subtle, but if you're doing it, it's going to feel like you're doing internal sit-ups. So if you've had any recent surgeries or anything, or issues in that area, you can do everything but that. So just be mindful. This is a practice where we want you to really be tuned into what your body needs. So the other thing is if you've eaten a big meal recently, that could make you feel a little queasy. So if you are practicing that belly movement and it just doesn't feel right, stop that piece of it and continue with the rest. The other piece, just as a disclaimer, is that we are going to be raising our arms above our head. And the mudra, there's a mudra like this where we've got our fingers interlaced and the pointer finger points up. So if you got any shoulder issues or anything like that, you can bring it down so that your shoulders are relaxed. But the full Kriya is with your shoulders, with your arms raised and your kind of biceps right by the ears. Yeah. So let me show you. I'm going to move my chair and then hop over to, well, I'll explain it and then I'll turn on some music. Okay. So first piece of it is if you are joining me on the ground, I've got a little cushion that I like to put under my rear because my knees are a little, I don't know, quirky sometimes. So I'm sitting like this on my heels. If you don't need the cushion, you don't need the cushion. The mudra, again, is the fingers are interlaced and then the pointer finger points up. We'll be raising our arms above our head and you can't see it, but my pointer fingers or my fingers are like straight up, pointing at the heavens. The mantra is Sat Nam. So Sat Nam, the meaning of that is I am, or truth is my identity. And the way that I like to interpret that mantra is I am my most true and authentic self. So it's like peeling away all of the layers of I should be this, or he wants me to be that, or I've been conditioned by society to believe this. And it's just coming back to the root of I am. Like, who am I and how can I be my truth? The gaze is that the eyes are closed and the gaze is on the third eye. So it's between the eyebrows and up a little bit, like maybe an inch. And so I know this is kind of a lot going on. My screen stopped sharing for some reason, but I don't think I need that
Excuse me,
anymore.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you can't sit
Yeah.
on your knees, is there another posture you could be in?
So you could be, would this work for you? You
Yeah.
could be up like this,
Yeah.
or as I said, you can just sit on a regular chair. That's fine too. So you can sit on a chair, both feet on the ground, and that's much more accessible for a lot of people as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Are there
removed, I did the stop share so people could see all of you.
Oh, wonderful. I might mess that up because I was going to play some music, and I think when I share Spotify, it messes that up. But you know, we don't even need the music. We'll have it for the next one. So get in the posture. We'll do this for about 3 minutes. So let me just show you what the tummy looks like. So my hands are going to be up, and I relax the tummy, and then I say Sat Nam, Sat Nam, Sat Nam, Sat Nam. So you can see it's going in and out. So what you're doing in order to do that, you're not doing a spinal flex. That is not what you're doing. You're doing a, if you're familiar with yoga at all, it's Mula Bandha. So it's like you're pulling up and in, like somebody's almost socking you in the stomach, or like you're trying to buckle your belt. Yeah. So like you're pulling up and in. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So let's get started and just try it for a few minutes and see what you think. So the idea, again, we're getting the energy moving from here, and you might want to visualize it kind of coming up and swirling all the way through the top of the crown. Okay. All right, here we go. Remember, eyes are closed, gaze is on the third eye, arms come up. Here we go. Sat Nam, 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 Sat Nam Sat, 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 Sat, Nam Sat, Nam Sat, Nam, one more minute. Nam Sat, 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 Nam. Now inhale, suspend the breath, pull everything up and in. The belly comes toward the spine. Imagine energy coming all the way up from the base of the spine, all the way through the crown, through the fingertips. Keep holding if you can. And exhale, the arms come down. Keep the eyes closed. Breathe normally. And just notice what you notice. Notice what's happening in the body, around the body. All right, good. So interested in hearing any thoughts or experiences with that one. That was 3 minutes of Sakriya, and you can do that anywhere up to 31 minutes. And as you can imagine, if you were to do that every day for 31 minutes, you would probably have some six-pack abs, but you would also have theoretically a greater connection with spirit and throughout your body and mind. So that's that one. Yeah.
It feels like a workout. A little bit.
It is. It is. It definitely feels like a workout. So a lot of Kundalini, that repetitive motion, you'll find that in a lot of the Kundalini moves. And again, it's to like start getting that pressure and tension there, and then it wakes things up in that area. Yeah.
So should you be perspiring a little bit?
Definitely you could get warm from that Kriya. Like it seems like it's not really much of anything, right? You're just doing this, you're barely moving, but it's because it's all core, right? And the core is where that furnace in your body is. And so, yeah, it is definitely not unusual to start sweating during that one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other?
Well, I have my hands up. This is Salome.
Yes.
Because
Hi, Salome.
if I go on chat, something happens. I really don't understand the computer. Okay, It was good. I found it a bit tiring. I don't know because of the breathing, but at the same time relaxing. If you understand what I'm saying.
I do. It's definitely tiring, and especially when you first start out because you're not used to using those muscles like that. We're not working that external core, you know, that you do when you do the regular sit-ups. It's really that internal core, which is a lot of the stabilizing core. And so it's really good for you to be working that internal core like that. There's a depth to it. And then the relaxing, yeah, it's almost again, I think it's because that the rhythmic vibration that's passing through. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, okay, thank you.
You bet. Okay, I want to make sure that we have time for this next one because this next one is really great. And it's called Kirtan Kriya. So Kirtan Kriya this is from the National Institutes of Health, so I'm not making this up. It's been shown to improve memory in studies of people with cognitive decline, cognitive impairment, and stressed out people, especially caregivers who are at a high risk of Alzheimer's disease. There have been lots of studies on this Kriya. It's the most well-researched Kundalini Kriya, as far as I can tell. It's supposed to really help sleep, decrease depression, reduce anxiety. I mean, this list of things, if it hadn't been in an NIH research paper, I probably wouldn't believe it. And maybe one of the most interesting things, and maybe Misha can talk a little bit about this, is this increase in telomerase. So I don't know if I'm saying it right, but you know, you've got your, these are the little strands that are part of your DNA that get shorter and shorter as you age, the telomeres. And so this is the enzyme that helps to make those stay long or grow. Do I have that right, Misha?
Except that you don't really regrow it. So what you do, you slow down the shortening. So there's no, I don't think anybody ever was able to regrow to, I mean, I think that would be pretty miraculous. But definitely decrease shortening, just like there's a data on Kirtan Kriya for Alzheimer's disease and significant data. In fact, I actually know personally really well the main researcher who does the studies. So,
oh, really? I would love to meet him.
So there's just two. There is Helen Laritsky at University of California, and also Siddharth, the founder of American Kirtan Kriya. I forgot his name. So I know them personally pretty well.
Yeah, so it's just it's somewhat complicated, which is why I think it's so effective, because if you look at the studies of the brain before and after practicing this Kriya for 12 minutes a day for, I don't know, like a month, you can actually see changes in the brain. And that's because it has so many elements, I believe. So it's got a moving mudra. So the posture is easy pose, which is this crisscross kind of posture, but you can do it in a chair. It doesn't need to be an easy pose. The mudra is a moving mudra. So you do your pointer finger to your thumb, middle finger to thumb, ring finger to thumb, pinky to thumb. So it's like this, and you keep going back to pointer finger through pinky finger, yeah? And then we're saying Satanama. So Satanama is kind of a longer edition of Satnam. So the meaning is the same. I am my most true and authentic self. I am. And we say one syllable per finger touch. So it's sa, ta, na, ma. Sa, ta, na, ma. And there's a sequence, which is we say it aloud for 2 minutes. Then you whisper it. Then you're silent, but you're saying it in your mind. Then you whisper again, and then you do it aloud again. So it's like this bell, right? And then one of the most important things that I tend to forget as I'm doing Sat Kriya, because there's just a lot going on, is that you're imagining energy coming from your head through your third eye like an L. So it's you say sa, ta, na, ma. And you're imagining of each syllable that there's this line of energy coming down through the top of your skull and through the third eye or the brow point. So it's a little complicated, but do what you can as we practice it. And I'll be really interested to hear your thoughts on this one. Misha, did you have anything to add on this? No. Okay.
No, but I'm very fascinated because it's a 12-minute practice that has been studied in randomized fashion, showing significant benefits for patients with Alzheimer's disease. So I'm excited to practice with you.
Yeah. Have you practiced it ever before?
I've done it a couple of times. I must say it doesn't like this. It's not a simple practice, but you need to keep trying to master it. I think once you get it, I think then it's pretty easy. There's not a lot of pieces.
Yeah.
Just like you have to do so many different things. Maybe that's why it's effective, right? Because you got to visualize and breathe right and verbalize and hold the mudras. Like it's just, you know.
Yeah, it's a lot going on. So if you forget, and I know that I can't have both the slide and the song up at the same time. So if you forget, do what you can to remember. The song will be saying Satanama, and when she whispers, you whisper. When she's quiet, you're quiet. When she starts again, then you start to be audible again. And we'll try it and see what happens. I'll remind you every now and then to do that L visualization through the mind. So let's, pardon me?
That's a quick question about the technique.
Yeah.
Are you doing the fingers and like after the pinky, you don't go backwards, you just go back to the forefinger, right?
That's a great question. Yeah. So you always start with the pointer finger through the pinky, then pointer finger through the pinky. Don't go backwards.
Okay.
Yep. That's actually a fairly important piece of it, apparently. The other important piece is that you say Satanama because it's it's thought to be the pressure points inside the mouth that activate different pieces in the brain too. They've tried it with different mantras and it hasn't worked as well. So something about this Satanama is important. All right, so let's start and see how it goes. So I'm going to come back here. I'm sitting in easy pose, but you can sit on your chair. So close the eyes, the gaze is on the third eye. The hands can rest on the legs. And when you're ready, start chanting along, moving the fingers and imagining the L as you go. Satanama, 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 So now whisper, keep the fingers and the L going. Okay, now silence. Still say the mantra in your mind. Keep the fingers moving and keep the L shape going through your mind. Make sure you're sitting up tall. The tailbone's tucked a little, the chin is tucked a little. And keep imagining that L with each syllable. Stay with it. Keep the mind focused. Keep saying the mantra in your mind. Here we go, whisper. Be really present to what's happening in and around your body right now as you go through this. Nama aloud. Nama. Keep the L going through the mind. Keep the fingers moving. Inhale. Exhale, release the fingers. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. All right. So that was your probably first try at Sakriyat. That one wasn't quite as physically challenging, but maybe really mentally challenging. Sometimes I get a headache because there's so much that I'm trying to focus on. So I'm curious if and so y'all can drop off if you need to, but any comments or questions?
And you can unmute yourselves if you have a question.
I feel really a lot of stuff happening with the head chakra.
Yeah, so it's activating our throat chakra here, which is about self-expression. The third eye is about intuition, and the crown again is that spiritual connection. So, and these are the upper kind of energy centers that are a higher vibration. Anyone else?
I was trying to, oops, sorry. I was trying to do the visualization. My L kept on going down.
What kept on going down?
Okay, I will do like this. And then and when I'm stretching it, I can't show it to you. When I'm coming here, I was doing this. The visualization was hard for me, basically. That's
the visualization is hard. It's hard for me too, especially at that pace. Maybe you can try it a little slower too, like sa, ta, na, ma, then it might be easier. I think it's just really hard to like keep going.
Yes.
It's a lot.
Thank you. That is good.
Yeah, so 12 minutes a day. Try it for a month if you've got 12 minutes a day and see what you think. I can put the Spotify link. I'll send it over to, and then maybe we can send that out as a follow-up.
Do you want to share your PowerPoint with folks?
Yeah, I can send that over to you.
Yeah, send that over to me with the link and I'll include it.
Okay, great. I'll put my email in there too in case you have any follow-up questions.